WTIM, your information station, and our morning show. It's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining me in this segment for our Taylorville School District Good News segment. It's the first Thursday of every single month. I've got Style Smith, new Taylorville Junior High School principal, joining us here today. Style, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on as a new face to the school district. And let's talk about that new face. And if you would, just kind of share with our listeners a little bit of background about yourself and how you kind of came to the school district. This isn't your first stop with the school district.
Right.
So if you would, kind of take us through your background a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Southern Illinois. I'm a Centralia native. Graduated from there in 2008, got my undergraduate degree at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And when I was finishing up there, I was just kind of applying at different places in the state. Back then it was hard finding teaching jobs.
Different.
And Taylorville had an opening. I came in, I interviewed, I was able to get that job as my first teaching job. So I started here in Taylorville in 2012. Met my wife a few months after I moved here. We got married in 2014. We've got 4 children now, Hava, Sawyer, Addie, and Holland. So they're 9, 6, 4, and 8 months. So it's full house.
Yes.
Yeah. So, taught in Taylorville for 11 years. I loved my, first stint here. I taught high school English. And I taught everything from freshmen to seniors, creative writing, a few different classes. So I had a great experience teaching here. But I eventually got to the point where, I was ready to make that next step, and I was ready to make the move into administration. So
for you, in terms of what Taylorville High School, that experience that you had for the 11 years, 12 years that you were already here, how important was that in making this decision to come back to the district?
I think that was huge because, I already had a familiarity with the school district. I wasn't at the junior high, obviously, but, I knew a lot of the teachers over at the junior high. And the junior high always had a reputation of being, arguably the happiest building in the district. There was just always a great culture there. I remember when I first started, Kirk Heddlecamp was the principal there, and he was phenomenal. Jessica Miller took over for him, and she did a wonderful job as well. And then, followed by Eric Bruder. So there was always just this great culture over at the junior high. And, when I was, thinking about making the move back and interviewing for this position, that was, having that familiarity and knowing what that junior high culture can be like, that was a huge draw for me coming back.
Well, and making that leap into administration, you'd spent 11, 12 years doing it. So all of a sudden it's like, I want to make that move. Was there a catalyst in making that move to administration, or was it just, what? I'm ready for that next step?
Yeah, it was just something I was just ready for something different. I was ready to, I love kids, and I love making a positive impact on students. And I was just ready to do that in a different way. So that was kind of what led me to jumping in. And on the administration side, I got a couple of years experience over in Pana. So the last 2 years I've been over there as the junior high assistant principal in the district. So the 6 through 12 athletic director, and had a great experience over there.
So you were also there when they made a pretty big change as well in terms of a brand new building and making a lot of changes there as well. So you've kind of weathered different storms, and you bring a lot of experience to the table with you. When it comes to establishing a culture, because it sounds like you want to continue on with a positive culture, one thing that kind of stood out to me was you're looking to have a relationship not only with students, but also with staff, and really building the two. Is there a theory that you kind of have when it comes to that? My thought is, if you start with the staff, you pass down that love for education to them, and then that trickles down to the students. Is that kind of where your head's at with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got this crazy concept that if teachers are happy and they like their job, that it'll have a positive impact on students as well. I think when you can form those relationships with staff members, and that's what I'm trying to do early on. I've started having some meetings with staff members and just, learning about them and finding out what they like, what they think could be better. I want to form those positive relationships with our staff members so that they come to work happy. They're excited to be in the classroom. And I think that just goes right down to the students from there.
It sure does. And I believe that can really go across the board, any business, any organization. If it starts at the top, it's a whole lot easier to love and your job and have a whole lot more heart with it.
Yeah,
it does. It really comes down from the top. And so I look forward to seeing you be able to establish that, or at least continue on with the positives that are already there. You mentioned, all right, now we're getting into things a little bit, but right now we're not doing so at TJHS. So these staff member meetings that you're kind of being able to put together right now, how is that going with TJHS having some work being done right now?
Right. So I've been over at the unit office, which has been actually really nice for me. I'm right next door to Mrs. Bruley right now. So, any questions, any help that I need, this is my first time I've been the principal of a building. She's been there as a resource to me, which has been great. She's been phenomenal to work for so far. And then, staff members, I've just been, I sent out an email, just told them, hey, I want to sit down with you for 15 minutes. Right now I am over at the unit office. If you could come over, we can chat, 15, 20 minutes. And I've gotten a really good response so far. So I've gotten to meet with a lot of staff members. I think I've gotten, I've learned a lot of great things about them and just, what makes them tick and, what's important to them. But also what, could be improved. So
just as important too, yes, at the end of the day, and taking up only 15 to 20 minutes of their summer, I'm sure they appreciate too, in doing so. But you don't have to have a long meeting to get something like that out of the way. You don't have to take forever to let's get these points and let's figure out what we can do better and what you could maybe do better, things of that nature. And so I look forward also to seeing you be able to meet everybody and then for them to get a familiarity with you before the students even get into the building. I think that's super important. For you now that you're making this transition, what in terms of being an assistant principal or an athletic director, what differences might there be to being now named as principal over a building? As somebody who doesn't know, what are some of those differences?
I think the biggest thing is, before as an assistant principal or as an athletic director, I had my building principals who, I could go to who, they were almost a little bit of a safety blanket, if you would, where now, as the building principal, I'm for our building, I'm kind of where, that goes to. Now, one thing I am excited about, so we hired a new assistant principal as well. Molly Richardson's our new assistant principal. She is going to be going on maternity leave here for a little bit, though, and I have Greg Patrick's coming in as the interim assistant principal, and Mr. Patrick has a lot of years of experience. He was the assistant principal in the junior high for a long time, principal at Stonington. He spent some time at the ROE, so he's going to be a great resource for me to have as well, starting off my time as a building principal.
I appreciate that because it really does require those relationships and for you to understand, and it sounds like you do, where you're coming into this thing at too. And so to continue to want to learn. And to me, that's life's greatest gift is to continue to be able to learn. So this is awesome for you and certainly super exciting. A few months after moving to Taylorville in 2012, I met my wife, Whitney. Mm-hmm. You married in 2014. You've got 4 kids. How important is that to you to have that family behind your back as well, that you go home to every day? And soon some of your kids might even be coming through the system with you.
Yeah, that's big for me. My wife, I mean, she's my person, and just having her there with me and my kids. And, I know one thing that Whitney and I have talked about is, I don't just want to go to the junior high and do my job and go home. And that's, we want to be visible in the community. We've lived in this, well, Whitney, my wife, she's from Taylorville. I'm not, I've been in the community now for 13 years, but, we want to be a visible part of the community and we want to get out. We want to see people. I want to see parents. I want to see community members and just, we want to be integrated into the community.
What are some of those ways you might do so? Are you talking maybe like a sporting event or going to a community day at the fair, or are there some ideas that you maybe have in terms of being more visible?
Yeah, I think just attending community events. I want to get out there. We're definitely planning on. Actually, my wife just sent me something last night about getting wristbands for the kids for the fair and making sure that we get out to the fair. I love Chili Fest. It's one of my favorite things every year. I love being at Chili Fest. I've got to go through and taste the Chili Verde every year. But yeah, just making sure that we are present at all those events and we're visible and we're able to just see people.
To me, that's important also for the parents too, to see mm-hmm. you out and about and intermingling and still as a regular human. You are still right. A regular human being. And I think sometimes that gets lost on us, that people in what we view as positions of power, they're still a regular human
Yeah.
being. So I think that's equally as important as any of what we've talked about here today, is being out in the community as well. The reason I ask about your family is because we talked so much about all these other great support systems, and it sounds like you got them at every stop.
Oh, yeah.
Family, the staff, heck, the students when they come in, maybe too. So there's another thing here that you mentioned. While you're not from Taylorville, I am not a Taylorville native. This community has become my home.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're really getting to have an impact on it. What's that mean to you?
That's huge for me because, I know that, I wasn't born here. I wasn't raised here, but there's nowhere else that I want to be. This is home. This is the town that I care about. I'm not an outsider who's coming in just to do a job. I'm coming into the junior high and I want the absolute best for all of our students because I want our community to be the best possible community that can be. So, the students that are going to, be in my building there at the junior high, I want to see them grow and thrive and be the best possible versions of themselves that they can be.
And I look forward to seeing this year for you. You got to feel it out a little bit. So I'm going to give you a year's grace, and I hope other folks will be willing to do so as well. Joining us here in studio today, Style Smith, Taylorville Junior High School principal, on the morning show as part of our Taylorville School District Good News segment. It's the first Thursday of every single month. We'll be right back around with Style. We'll talk more about his transition to being the new face at TJHS. You're listening to WTIM, your information station.
WTIM. WTIM.
And we're back with the WTIM Morning Show here on your information station. It's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment is new TJHS Principal Style Smith as part of the Taylorville School District Good News segment the first Thursday of every single month. We talked a little bit about his background and how he started some staff member meetings, the difference in being an assistant principal now as the principal, his family life, and now Taylorville as his home. We'd like to transition into curriculum, that side of things. And your background, your forte is in English, but now you're over all the umbrella. You're umbrelling the whole side of curriculum. What can you tell us about the curriculum at TJHS and maybe some of the changes?
Yeah, so one change that we're making this year, we are moving over to a new math curriculum. Before I even started all of last year, they were working pretty hard on just looking into other curriculums and figuring out what the best route to go was. We think we've got a great curriculum lined up, so we'll be making that switch over this year. And I think it's going to be really great for our students for their advancement in math knowledge, and so that'll be a good transition for them. And I mean, just as far as kind of guiding the overall curriculum in the school, I think one of the things that I want to do is I want to be present. I want to pop into classrooms and I want to see the great things that our teachers are doing. But I'm also going to trust our teachers as experts in their subject matter to guide that education.
And you have to be. You do. You have to rely on the people that are working for you and with you. And maybe not seeing it so much as working for you, but working with you. And that's the message I pick up from that. But again, visibility too, and being a part of the classroom, the community, and the likes there. I'm going to call you a lover of extracurriculars. I mean, 10 years in coaching basketball, softball for 3 years, student council advisor for 3 years. If you would, tell me a little bit about those extracurriculars outside of the core classroom, and why it's so important for kids to be involved in them and for staff and others to be involved too.
Right. So, being from Centralia, I grew up in a big basketball community. Centralia, they're the winningest high school basketball team in the nation. So I was part of that growing up. And so when I came over to Taylorville, I got to be the JV basketball coach for 3 years under Kerry McVickers, who's a Hall of Fame basketball coach, one of the most enthusiastic guys that you'll ever meet in your life. He was the type of coach that kids would just run through a brick wall for. And then I transitioned from there to coaching under Ryan Brown, who, again, super enthusiastic. Kids work hard for him. He gets the most out of his guys. So I've always been a basketball guy. I love baseball, huge Cardinals fan. And so that's another thing that I'm excited about, getting over here to the junior high, just being present at basketball games, at volleyball games, baseball, softball, getting in there with the extracurriculars, going to choir concerts, band concerts, being part of that as well. We've got so many great programs at the junior high that, I'm just excited to be part of.
I really appreciate you mentioning band and choir. I think those are forgotten about sometimes. Yeah. I really do. And so we focus so much on the football, the basketball, and the baseball. And why not, of course, but those things too have got to get their love and their due respect. You mentioned Centralia as the most winning basketball program in the nation.
Yep. Yeah.
Really?
My senior year, actually, we won our 2000th game in the program's history.
Wow.
So yeah, they've got, I think, a shade under 2,500 wins now.
25. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I'm learning through you. The only thing that hurt me a little bit was that you are a Cardinals fan. I'm telling you, it's the only thing that hurt me just a little bit.
I'm sorry for having good taste in baseball teams.
That's unfortunate. Maybe not in fields and stadiums though. I don't know. I'll let you have it. But again, Style Smith is the new principal at Taylorville Junior High School. Style, thank you for joining us here on the morning show.
Appreciate you having me on, Grayson.
Absolutely. Got to learn a little bit about him and his background, his family life, Taylorville now being his home, and some changes and some plans maybe coming up. But we got to let him get his feet wet. You're listening to WTIM, your information station, and our morning show. It's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. And Landmark of Taylorville, it's our Taylorville School District Good News segment, the first Thursday of every month.
Your information station, WTIM.